All right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is November 2nd, 2022. Welcome back to a special show tonight. Tonight, Real Talk with Ronnie will be bringing you the 2022 Lodi Board of Education online forum. I had the great honor and opportunity to be invited to host this forum. So, a little bit about this forum, and about the issues that are going on in today's world, in today's, board or the Board of Education is a really, really hot topic, not just in Bergen County, but in New Jersey and in the rest of the country. So, it's all the more important that we have these discussions on the issues that occur during Board of Ed, especially when it comes to the curriculum that our children are learning in our public schools. So this invitation was sent out last night, okay? Because I was not able to do this forum until today. I've been swamped. So, just so you guys know, I'm also running for county commissioner here in Bergen County. So that's my campaign. And just because I'm a Republican does not mean that I will be taking sides during this forum. I am impartial, and I'm basically here just as the moderator. Okay. So my job here is to moderate and not to inject my own personal, views. The questions tonight are my own and have not been given to me by any of the participants. And before we bring on our guests for tonight, let me just explain the format of the forum. The forum will go from 1 hour to 1.5 hours, right? There will be an opening statement from each candidate. Each candidate will get 2 minutes. I will also serve as the timekeeper. After the opening statements, there will be a series of questions in which each candidate will get up to 2 minutes to answer the questions. When the candidate is approaching the 1 minute and 30-second mark, I will hold up this little card to let the candidates know that they have 30 seconds left to finish their statement. And then, that will be the process. At the end of the questionings, I suspect there will probably be around 5 or 6 questions, maybe more. There will be a round of closing statements in which each candidate will also get 2 minutes to give their final thoughts. During the course of the debate, of the forum, I encourage all the listeners and all the viewers to ask questions, right? And if the question is an appropriate one, I will certainly pose that question to our participants tonight. Okay. And of course, after each question is given, after the candidates answered the questions, I reserve the right to ask a follow-up question. All right. So if I do ask a follow-up question, the candidate will have another 30 seconds to respond. All right. So all 6 candidates for the Lodi Board of Ed, position were invited tonight. However, we only have 3 participants: Al Mastro Filippo, Joseph Ramos, and Jimena Ochoa. I hope I'm saying all those names right. They are bracketed under the Citizens Against Corruption banner. The other 3 candidates, the incumbent, Nancy Cardone, Marjorie Brightweiser, and Tyra Wright, are under the Progress Not Politics banner, and they have not responded. So tonight we will only be hearing from 3 of the 6 candidates. So without further ado, let's bring them on. Al Mastro Filippo, Joseph Ramos, and Jimena Ochoa. Okay. All right. So welcome to tonight's forum. I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity and the pleasure of hosting this. This is my first time doing something like this. I know I have my show every single week, but it's a little bit different than an actual forum. So before we begin, I just want to make sure that you guys can all hear me and see me clearly.
Yes.
All right. So for the opening statements, why don't we start with ladies first? So Jimena, I will give you 2 minutes to make your statement. Please begin.
Okay. I decided to run for Lodi Board of Education trustee position after attending numerous board meetings and realizing the injustice that were taking place in Lodi education, along with the lack of support for the staffs. And that's why I decided to run for Board of Education trustee.
Okay, great. All right, thank you. Next up, we have Al Mastro Filippo.
How you doing, Mr. Lynn? Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. First of all, my name is Al Filippo. As many Lodi citizens know, I've been on the board. I was vice president for 1 year. I've been on and off elections for the last 7 years, helping other candidates as well. I am a lifetime Lodi citizen. My family had their business here for 62 years, formerly known as the North Pole, formerly known as Windsor Gardens, and finalized as Shelley Blue. I got involved with the board many years ago when I started seeing things happening. I mean, the biggest alert set me to really get involved was when they were trying to put up an $8 million building and they had the funding to do it. It was just astronomical to have those kind of reserves and to be able to put up a building without borrowing any money. And it got me very concerned what was going on. I also at the time had children in the school. I had 2 children. My wife has been a former board member as well. And getting back to why I ran, the concerns of having that kind of money in funding in reserve just sent up a red flag to me. Lodi is one of the highest property taxes, I believe, in Bergen County. And for us to have that kind of reserves, to be able to put up a building without borrowing any money, the red flags went off, and I just got involved and started asking more and more questions. I ran 1 year, I lost, I was appointed that same year. I served for a year on the board for that following year. We were able to stop the building from being put up and have people take a second look instead of rushing into it. So that's one of the main reasons I first got involved. And then a lot of other issues came about, and we'll talk more about that later. Thank you.
Okay. Oop. All right. Thank you, Al. All right. Next up, we have Mr. Joseph Ramos.
Yes. Hi. My name is Joseph Ramos. I'm running for Board of Ed. I'm a former trustee. I was a former chairman of the Budget Committee. During that time, we reduced the budget by $3 million. The current board has actually gone above and beyond what we saved and what we did. When we reduced the budget by $3 million, there was no impact on any of the students or faculty. We did a really, really good job. We were there. We actually put in classrooms, 2 different types of classrooms, what we will talk about later. We did a really great job. As I was leaving, I noticed when I didn't get reelected the last time, I noticed that there was a lot of conflict of interest. That's why I'm running again. And that the budget skyrocketed $7 million for no reason. We actually got, since I left, we actually got $7 million more in aid, and they actually spent $7 million more in the budget. It's irresponsible. Basically, Lodi's not a rich town. We're trying to, maintain taxes. It's really tough now that the economy with inflation, people are trying to put food on their tables. And basically, there's a runaway board, and I'm trying to get back on the board to straighten it out.
Okay, great. Well, that concludes the opening statement portion of tonight's forum. All right, so now I'm gonna lead off by asking a question that's posed by one of our audience members now. So one of our audience members who's watching right now is Basil Kraniski, who is a great friend of mine. He's like in his 90s, right? And he's got so much energy, and he recently just celebrated his birthday. So happy birthday once again, Basil. But his question is: ask the candidates if the education in the schools are going in the right direction. All right, so I will give that question first to, who wants to be the first to answer this question? Okay, Al.
Ron, just real quick, are you getting feedback? Because I'm hearing something over the okay.
No?
No, okay, maybe it's just me. Is our education going in the right direction? that's a question that. How many minutes do I have?
You got 2 minutes.
That's a question that's, I guess, depending on who you're talking to. Listen, we just came out of COVID, so anybody believes that our schools are going in the right direction right now is in fantasy world. We've got students, children who are 2 years, behind where they should be. And to no fault of the teachers trying to teach them, but virtual, as many of them admitted, just didn't work. Why it didn't work? Well, it's obvious. As a coach, just knowing to keeping the attention of a student to teach them anything is a job when you're face to face. Trying to do it through a video camera is almost impossible at that age. Excuse me 1 second. We've got a lot of activity going on with the NJEA, and just to be clear, and I always say this, the teachers union and the teachers to me are two different entities. The teachers union has their agenda, and teachers, of course, have their own. And sometimes they collide, sometimes they don't. But to me, the biggest problem with the education, besides that it was having very big difficulties going on through COVID, is that we have the unions trying to get involved with our boards, meaning them funding campaigns locally. What the union has figured out, the state union, the NJEA, is that why are we funding senators and congressmen and spending big money when we can turn around and change a board of education where our contracts are discussed, our curriculums are discussed, everything can be done locally just by having 5 votes that want to go your way. So to say the schools are going in the right direction right now, I would say as long as we allow teachers unions to fund and control boards of education, and I believe there should be a teacher on every board of education, don't get me wrong, but to allow them to have the majority and to make their decisions at a local level is not the direction this could be going.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Al. All right. Who wants to answer next this question? Okay, I'll give it to Joseph.
Okay. What I believe, I don't think education's going in the right direction. There's an issue with politics. And when you get politics involved in education, it shouldn't be in the classroom, first of all. It shouldn't be there. The classroom should be a neutral place. But it's not. Unfortunately, the teachers union get involved and they affect the curriculum. They really should not be involved. That's my opinion in general. In general, the during COVID, the education system suffered because all people are social. Putting a kid on a computer and thinking he's going to learn sitting at home for how many hours per day, kids get bored. I know the kids are behind. Teachers, I believe, are afraid to say that because they're afraid to put the technology that they got. They're afraid to say anything that's against what the union would say. In terms of technology, it's good to a point, but it's not good for specifically learning directly from technology. And we're getting that now. We're hearing it on the news that it was a big failure, and the kids are behind.
Okay, thank you. All right, and then last but not least, why don't we go to Ms. Ochoa?
Yes. I think it's not going to the right direction. Why? Because as a grandmother, as an religious education assistant, I see the lack of learning in speech and reading. The kids are the little ones. That one was affected with this education. I think that we can do better. Like Joseph said, that the computers are not helping because the interact is the things that little kids need. And I see all most of the kids are behind in that aspect, the reading. It's a big problem because they just started. Is how many years they are need help to for the reading. I don't know, and that's why I see that we can help. We can help achieve that for the little ones.
Okay, great. Thank you, Miss Ochoa. And I must say, you're a grandmother. Wow, you look really good for being a grandmother. Must be the youngest grandmother out there.
Well,
Okay. We have another question from our audience. Okay, though this particular person has two questions. All right, we're gonna show the first one. So from Janine DePaulo, what are the needs of your school district? Okay, why don't we start off with Joseph first?
District for special needs children. We actually have 70% of the South Bergen jointure is special, where our special needs students go. And we basically make up 70% of that school. Why? I don't know. I don't know why. I mean, every other town surrounding Lodi doesn't have 70% of their kids going to one school. But I believe that's our biggest need right now, and it's our biggest budget issue because we can't afford to educate 70% of the kids that are there. We're talking millions and millions and millions of dollars. And it's not really fair to the community. We're trying to do our own program. It'll be a lot cheaper, but that's our biggest need right now, having our own program.
Okay, great. Thank you. Why don't we go next to Gemina?
I believe that Joseph is saying the truth. I see more kids that they need help, especially the autism. That is, I see more and more, and I don't see the help that they are doing in our district, and that's why I say that it is important that we spend more money in our Lodi school system, not giving money to the other schools. I think it's gonna be more cheaper to do that.
Okay, great. And Al?
Yes, thank you, Ron. I agree with Mr. Cho and Mr. Ramos. It's, special ed has always been a priority to bring some of it back to Lodi. What I disagreed with this board's direction is to blatantly and without any real thought decide to possibly build a new school for both special ed and elementary. When asked by me at a board meeting, what kind of money can we bring back as far as student wise? Because obviously you can't bring back every special needs student. Some have special needs that Lodi will never be able to provide. But I'm all for that. I have a hesitation to allow somebody to put up a whole new building. And what happens if our special needs decreases? What happens if Lodi currently right now is at one of the lowest attendance rates, not attendance rates, let me phrase that, student population that it's been in close to 30 years. So to spend that kind of money, which is almost, I believe they budgeted, according to their committee, close to 18 million they were looking at. I don't think that's necessary yet. I think we have a lot of other options to consider. And we really need to know what kind of money is the district savings for special needs. And I know it's not all about the money, but you have to answer that question before you spend an $18 million building. Along with that, obviously we've got to get back to some of the basics. And while we were there the first time, we brought a makerspace in, we got back to trades. I'm a big believer that school and education is not all about college. It's got to be about students' future. So we're already 2 years in the hole with these students. And again, nothing anybody could have predicted, but we need to get back to the basics and teach our kids what they're missing and get back to the basics as far as let's get these kids some programs that are going to help them in their futures, not just in getting to college, because not every kid is going to college. Also, one of the biggest things as far as structural issues is the middle school quite clearly needs a much bigger gym. It's one of the smallest gyms around, and it also needs a much bigger cafeteria. These kids are having 7-period lunches in the middle school, and it's absolutely ridiculous. So I think our first priority, if we're going to spend any money on building, should be considering getting a bigger gym for them and getting a bigger cafeteria, and also an outdoor space for them to use, however that can be done. But that's what I feel is some of the bigger issues. There's a lot of little issues, what's going on our board, but those are for a different time.
Okay, great. Thank you, Al. We have a couple of more comments here. So we have a comment here from Amilcar Caballero. This generation of children can't be independent themselves, need to have more labor skills in schools like cooking, wood shop, or even auto care repairs. Do you agree with this statement? Why don't we start with Joseph?
We set that up. We're pretty much Citizens Against Corruption. We set that up when me and Al were on the board. They have different classes now and different classrooms to learn in. That's what we fought for, and we believe that's true. That you need those, even basic finance. You need that. The way the world's going right now, they're trying to go to a cashless system, and that's really bad for the kids, especially when you don't know finance, or you don't know how to do a check, or you don't know the value of things, and basic needs like cooking or wood shop or auto car repairs. Those are things that the kids need to learn. It gives them an opportunity to see what other people do for a living, and I think it's a good thing.
All right. Thank you. Same question. Let's give it to Al.
I mean, I think I hit on a little bit this before, but as Joe said, I was a definite big proponent, and so was a lot of board members, not just CAC. That believe that we should be getting more back into trades, and that was part of the makerspace. But the big part of makerspace, which I'm not sure, and I'm getting conflicting results, is that the makerspace was not supposed to be just for the highly advanced students who are doing robotics and engineering and stuff. They were supposed to be involved in basic trades and get to trades and maybe bring back, woodworking, and I know they're doing a little bit. But right now, from what I understand, and unfortunately, they don't have anyone teaching those classes. So we have a project that was, quite expensive. I believe it was over $800,000 to do the makerspace, and unfortunately, I don't believe we have anybody running it. If somebody wants to correct me on that, I will apologize. But last I heard, it was some of those classes were not able to do because they couldn't find an instructor. But we have to get back to life classes too, teaching, as Mr. Rainbow said, classes that give people life skills. Kid leaves high school. I know they have driving class, but I don't know if they should know how to change oil. They should know how to change a tire. They should just know basically. I'm sorry, not change oil, but at least check their oil. They should have some skills with fundamentally independent, especially cooking. Now, I brought up when I was there that I knew Bergen Community College was supposed to be building a $25 or $45 million trade school. I don't know if that was put on hold for during COVID, but I suggested that we entertain sending some kids there. And I know a lot of people say to me all the time, hey, we have tech schools for that kind of stuff. But my problem is with tech schools is I don't think a kid should have to give up his whole school or all his friends or where he's been going to school just for the tech purposes. They should be able to dabble, and if they like what they're dabbling in, then maybe they pursue tech school another year. But they shouldn't have to leave district to find out basic knowledge of trades and other options above and beyond college.
Thank you, Al. All right, same question to Ms. Ochoa. Do you feel like students in today's schools need to have more labor skills in school?
Yes, I think that's very important for all ages, not just for the high school, middle school, for the grammar school too, because when they are little, they are more interesting on maybe sewing, maybe doing something with the hands, because like Joe says, they spend so much time in the computers that they are not um, with the real world. That's not the real world. You have to able to be independent. You have to able to, like Al says, cook or fix something in the car, or do something at home when their parents need their help. And I think that's the important thing that we can add that to the curriculum to all school in Lodi.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, the next question. We have a few more questions from the audience, but before we get to those, I'd like to ask a question that I came up with. Okay, so currently, Lodi has the highest property taxes in Bergen County, which saw a $7 million school budget increase in one single year. Right now, my question is, why does Lodi have the highest property taxes in Bergen County? And in your mind, is the school budget being spent wisely? If not, why? Let's start with Al.
Okay. Well, yes. I mean, this year the board for the 2022-23 season school year increased the school budget over $7 million. Now, fortunately for the taxpayers, they received $7 million more in state aid, so the taxpayers didn't see a huge increase this year. However, most of the projects they were considering and have done, some of them, are projects that are going to exist year to year. So while there may not have been a big increase this year, it will definitely hurt us next year. Listen, there's no justification for a $7 million increase. We on the board, when we sat there and with other board members from that one part of the CAC team, along with Joe, and I believe my wife was on the committee, they were able to cut the budget within 3 years, over $3 million. They didn't affect any students. They didn't affect any staff. They didn't affect any programs. Matter of fact, we brought numerous programs back. We brought some sports programs back. We did all this cutting the budget. So for them to have to raise the school $7 million during coming out of COVID, coming out of one of the worst financial situations this country, inflation-wise, has seen in probably most of our times, to even have the audacity to consider that being raising that kind of money shows a lack of knowledge and shows a lack of really asking questions. This board doesn't even sit in front of the public and ask their questions to the administration so the public can hear it. Anybody who's watched a board meeting will quite clearly know that their questions are done in committees where nobody can see or ask, if they're asking any questions at all. Lodi's got a history of overspending. This is what they do. They pad the bills, just like any other corrupt business. They pad, and excuse me for using the word corrupt, but it does apply in this situation. They are padding construction jobs. You know, it's the old joke. If you watch the movie Independence Day, when Judd Hirsch asks, "How do we fund Hangar 15?"
Okay.
And Judd Hirsch
Thank
says,
you, Al.
$50. You think we really spend that on a screwdriver? Then that's pretty much what's going on here.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Gemina, let's give you the next shot at this question. Okay.
Okay. I see the property taxes in my town is lower and the school taxes is very higher. And with all type of money that they are taking from taxes, I thought it's gonna be better education, but I don't see it. I know for a fact that private school with less money, the kids are doing better. Like ourselves, is a waste money because they try to, in one meeting I explained to them that I don't I don't be in favor of putting the solar panel. And they say, oh, okay. But the following meeting, they already being approved. And that's why I say, it's not fair for the taxpayer. I'm a grandma. Like Joe says, we are not a rich town. And we have to watch our budget. And like Al said, that is not going to be increased this year, but next year and the following years with all the spending, like I say, they need to be more wisely in spending the tax money.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right. Next up, why don't we have Joe Ramos? Same question, okay?
Okay, so I don't believe there's any fiscal responsibility. When we were on the board, when I was chairman of the finance committee, we would go over line item by line item to see where we could save. That is no longer done. They have a committee that speaks to the board and tells them basically, this is it. No one looks at the budget. Nobody got a budget. And they all vote on something they don't know anything about. It's your, as a trustee, you have a fiscal responsibility to look at the budget line by line, which we used to do. But they don't do that anymore because all of a sudden they don't want to release a line by line budget. So there's some serious issues of transparency and conflict of interest with the board that's presently on there. That's why they need people. I'm an accountant by trade. They need people to look over at the budget, and then we need to see the budget because it's public funds. It's taxpayer money. If you're not allowed to see taxpayer money and where it's been spent, then obviously there's something going on that they don't want the rest of the public to know. So if you want to raise something by $7 million in 1 year, something's definitely going on.
Okay, thank you, Joseph. All right. We have another question here from the audience. Let me throw it up. So also from Miss DiPaolo, 65% of fourth graders are not proficient in reading. What do you suggest to like? How would you make this issue better? Let's start with Gemina.
Okay, like I say, they need help with extra help with them, because the teachers are more relying now with the computers, and the kids are, I think, spend more time in the computer than with a book, and that's why they are lose the concentration in the reading. And I believe, like a grandma, they need like hands-on in the book, not just the computer, because now they click something and the computer are doing all the job. I don't think it's fair for the kids.
Okay, great. Thank you. Joseph?
Okay, nothing takes the place of human interaction. If everybody thinks a computer is going to teach you how to read, they're fooling themselves. The only thing the computer is going to do is basically ruin the kid's eyes eventually, and they're not going to be very social if they think a computer is that it's all it. That's not it. I remember there was a lot of social interaction when I was learning how to read, and there was always a group. So you were always in a group, and you learned with the group. With the computer, you don't know how the kid. You really don't know how the kid is until you test them, how he's doing. So, like I said, you can't replace teachers with computers. Teachers are more important for learning how to read than a computer ever will be.
Okay, thank you, Joseph. Al?
Well, that's
same question.
Is it Janine or Jeannie? Janine, that's a very interesting fact, which I wasn't even aware of. It was that high, and I thank you for that question. I've questioned that. I don't have a younger child anymore, but I did question a lot of that when I was in the grammar schools with students. That how are we teaching math problems, science, if the student hasn't fully learned how to read proficiently, as you said, and and it concerned me then. And this, that, you hear all the excuses, but the fact of the matter is, you're correct. How do you teach them anything else until you teach them to read? And in the teachers' defenses, we do have a lot of students that come here who are, not fully bilingual, who come here, who can, who are first generation here, who have issues with the English language. So I'm not blaming it fully on the teachers. I'm also not blaming on the fact that we allow our kids on social media and video games and TV shows. And so we have to take some of the blame for the proficiency of not reading. However, it is their job, and you can't take that part away. Whatever difficulties they're having doing, something needs to change, because I didn't think it was working. But looking at the numbers, and I'm going to take your word on those numbers are factual, and I don't know if that's just Lodi or that's just in general education. And I'd like to know that, so please send that message next if you can. We need to get back to the basics and concentrate on reading. I don't need, a fifth grader, sixth grader doing algebra. I need to know how to read and write, and get to the basics. Let's get past that, and then we can work on the extra items, the curriculums, the specialty items that people want to get to. And I think there should be a small group that can advance to that. And that's why we always had, students who advanced a little quicker, were able to go to different programs. But you can't expect the whole class to get it. But thank you, Janine, for that information.
Yes, great question. All right, the second question comes from me. So, as we all know, in not just in Lodi, but in many parts of the county, the state, and the country, right? Nepotism has been a big issue, right? So, as a Board of Ed trustee, how would you curb nepotism in the school system? Let's start with Joseph.
First of all, I'd like to say that all three of us, there is no nepotism involved. All three of us took an oath. We don't have any people that are related to us working in the Lodi school system. So in terms of nepotism, when we were on the board, especially me and Al, we made sure that the best candidate was picked, whatever teaching job it was. And we had committees to go through basically all the resumes, and we would pick the best people, and we would present those people basically to the superintendent. There was controls. We made sure that there wasn't any nepotism going on, but since the current board has so many conflicts of interest, there's no way anyone could do that.
Okay, thank you. Al?
Well, let's be clear. Nepotism may not always be the problem of just hiring a family friend member. First of all, let me step back because a comment. I want to make this clear, because I'm sure adversaries will say it. I do have 2 fourth cousins who are in the school system. I don't think I've had a phone call from them since 1988. But to be clear, I do have 2 fourth cousins. I'm allowed to vote on any of their issues because they are a distant cousin, but I don't want my adversaries to say he never mentioned that. So I'm saying that up front. Nepotism to me is not the problem of helping somebody get a job, whether it be a family or friend. Nepotism is created, the problem is created by nepotism is when you're unwilling to fire that person when they can't do the job you hired them for. That's where I find the biggest issue. Most people have the guts to hire their own family members, but very few will have the nerve to let them go when they can't do what they're supposed to do. Currently, I believe we have out of 3 board members, and I won't throw them under the bus name-wise, but they have 6 family members working for the school district. Now, sure, they're not supposed to vote on their contracts or things like that, but in this case, you had a board president who picked the negotiation committee, while she has 4 family members who are involved. With those contracts, she picked the persons who were going to negotiate their contract. To the eye of the public, that's a problem. Whether it's an ethics violation or not, it really doesn't matter. The public sees it as differently. So, nepotism is rampant. Everybody knows it's rampant in Lodi. It always has been, always will be, unless you stop it. We did form personnel committees, which Joe mentioned. I pushed that through, and we were able to see the resumes of not people who were interviewed, but everyone. So we got a good idea whether the most experience was being put forward. Same thing with promotions and things like that. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Al. Same question to Ms. Ochoa.
It's something that just start. It's something that just start learning, because before it was like I don't see any nepotism, but now that I go into the meetings more, and then I see that you're talking about the nepotism, but something that I have to learn. And like Al and Joe, they already being in the board, they're gonna show me and teach me how to deal with that. Because like Al says, it's not about the person or family member that you hire, is the qualification that the person had. And that's why I see they need in Lodi education, they need that to check more of the qualification of the person or the teacher.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, we have a few comments regarding the prior question about the 65% of fourth graders who are not proficient at reading. Mr. Paulo says that the 65% in the nation, you should look into the Lodi reading scores. So that's a national figure. The Lodi score might be different. And she also mentioned not teacher's fault. I recommend looking into science of reading and reach out to me for further information regarding teaching students how to read. Okay, so I suggest you guys all look her up after the forum, and perhaps you guys can brainstorm. All right. So thank you for participating, Ms. DePaulo. And if you have any more questions, keep them coming. Although I think we don't have time for more questions, I think we'll have one more question from me. Okay. And I believe this is probably the biggest question on most parents' minds today. All right. So this is it. Parents are outraged at the school curriculum, which focuses on issues like CRT, sex, and gender. How did these topics get into our public schools in the first place? And what are your plans to counter these type of topics? Let's start with Al.
Well, I mean, you got a wide question there. Let's talk about it. First of all, I've always been a big believer, and I'm going to make this quite clear, that there should be no agendas pushing the school. I've said that from the first day I got on, and I still believe that now. School's about education. That's all it should be, and to advance these kids into their futures. Regarding the CRT, honestly, even as a board member, it's being somewhat buried in individual classrooms. I mean, instead of, I don't know what the curriculum is or how it is. I've asked this numerous times. Are we using it? Are we not using it? Is it presented in the school? And I still, to this day, have not gotten a straight answer. The sex education class, I mean, Ronnie, I know I did back in May, I actually was part of a program with you talking about this, and my feelings haven't changed. To me, sex education was always about reproduction, excuse me. It's not about orientation, positions, movements, whatever you want to call it. It's about reproductive systems and teaching the kids the basic knowledge. I don't believe that we should be going down the road we are with the orientations and things like that. I believe that there should be something available for students who are going through those issues. But I've said it from day one, and I'll say it now. It should be an opt-in type program. I know Lodi still has not announced what they're doing, which is a shame. It should have been announced back in June. But unfortunately, it has not. So I don't know what's going on with that. We've asked numerous times, but haven't seen the curriculum. But it should not involve more than reproductive issues, and that's it. It doesn't belong in our school, and it definitely doesn't belong in our grammar schools for the younger kids as far as orientations and other issues. But I definitely believe there should be a program for kids who have questions and needs for that, and to be able to help people.
Thank you, Al. And let me ask you a follow-up question as it pertains to this particular question, right? You mentioned that as it pertains to sex ed, it ought to be an opt-in as opposed to an opt-out. Why do you think that?
Well, why I think it should opt in is because opting out is putting people in a situation where, whether it be parents or students, to opt out, it's you're telling people, I'm not interested in what you're interested in. I don't think how you think. I'm not. It's basically saying, I want nothing to do with what you're bringing. You're putting them in a spot where they could be somewhat bullied in a mental type situation. Could be putting them in a situation where you're just putting everybody in a bad situation with opt-in. It's almost like an embarrassment to opt out. People try to make you look like you don't care. We see the bullying that goes on social media, and it shouldn't be allowed. An opt-in allows you to make the decision. And if you choose not to, nothing has changed for you. You don't need to report to anyone. You don't need to tell anyone you're not going to opt in. It should be a choice, no different than, picking the subjects you pick for school. Obviously, there are state mandatory classes. We get that. But it shouldn't be made so that you have to embarrass them. I mean, the teachers can relate to when the Janus decision came in about paying union dues. It's the same thing. When they said they had to opt out, I said the same exact thing. You're putting people in a situation where they're going to get bullied and pointed at and saying, you're leaving us. Where if you would have just said, hey, if you want to be part of the union, you have to re-opt in. So a lot of staff understands what that positioning is. So I'm a big believer, opt in. But I'm also, like I said, I'm a big believer to have something available for students who need to address that situation.
Fair enough. Thank you, Al. So let's go back to that previous question, and let's get an answer from our other two candidates. Let's start with Gemina.
Okay. As a grandma, like I said before, I always look up all the news around not just New Jersey, around the USA. And I see how Governor DeSantis are doing this curriculum stuff that is happening. And I see that this is the best way that we can do it here too. I asked about 4 or 5 months ago for the curriculum, but still they don't answer. I just waiting because I say we don't need to grooming children. We need to be like the other person, I don't remember the name, that says that we need more time for the kids to teach how to read, how to do math, and not to spend time grooming kids. I really think about that. And protect the innocence of the children, because they don't need that. It's up to the parents, not to schools.
Okay. Thank you, Gemina. And last up, Joseph.
Okay, I what I believe is the parents should have control over everything their student or their children would like to learn. If it's against their morals or values or whatever it may be, it's up to the parent. It's not up to the school to teach those things. That's my personal opinion, but the state allows for this. We don't know what we're going to be doing in Lodi yet because nobody's ever come out and said what the curriculum is going to be. So we have no idea how they're going to teach these new things. But you should have the option, the parents should have the option of looking at the curriculum and determining what they want their child, what classes they want their child to be in. I think that's important. I think it gives the parents the power to control their kids' education, and politics doesn't have to get involved in the classroom. It's up to the parents, and that's pretty much it. It's their children. It's not the state's children.
Okay, great. All right, we have one more comment here from one of our viewers. Need more resources for special education or more programs for special children with disabilities. I think all our candidates today would tend to agree with that statement, right? Okay, now for the final question of the night, let me throw it up. Give me 1 second. So, would you be open to working alongside colleagues that you don't necessarily see eye to eye with? And if so, how do you plan on doing that? Let's start with Joseph.
We have already worked with prior boards that didn't agree with us, and everything worked out well. We did very good in terms of the budget, and they got what they wanted. We worked with the principals, and we worked with the administrators, and we just weeded out things that we really didn't need that year. We just pushed it forward. We saved a lot of money, and most of the money that they spent over the past year and a half or 2 years recently, that was all our savings that we saved for basically the students and raises and stuff like that. So we have worked with the other board members that did not agree with us, and it worked out well.
Okay, great. Same question to Miss Ochoa.
Okay. I'm open. I'm not against nobody. I just want to the best for Lodi, and then the communication is gonna work in this because we are adults and we are trying to work for children's and for all Lodi.
Okay, thank you. And last but not least, Mr. Mastro Filippo.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Lynn. Listen, my whole, almost, except for 1 year, my whole term on the board, and as a lot of people know, I film meetings and sporting events through my Lodi Live page. I do a lot of, so I've attended meetings for the last probably 6 or 7 years. And while I was on the board or not, we filmed meetings. So I spent a lot of time there listening and hearing. Only 1 year did CAC, and I don't think we had 5 votes. I think we had 4 candidates on there at one time, so other people were involved. All the things we were on there were we worked with the other side. But in their defense, a lot of great ideas were passed along. A lot of we took some of the politicians out of it, and we got back to what needed to be done, which was straighten up the schools. Lodi schools are not rated that well. I mean, especially about the high school. And, we were on track, and our goal was to make Lodi at least equal or better than every town that bordered us. And we were heading that direction, and maybe we still are heading in the direction, but unfortunately, there's been no testing to know. So while I may disagree with board members who tend to have their own children's who work for the board mindset of their doing what's best for their own children rather than the district's children. Those are the times when I get a little annoyed, because there's plenty to go around, and I think we need to now set this school on a path where we're all proud of it, including the staff. We have a lot of great staff at Lodi. I know I get accused of not liking teachers, but that's absolutely not true. We do have a lot of staff on Lodi that just not being allowed to do what do, and hopefully we'll get that, and hopefully we'll have a board, whether we're on the same team or not, work together and vote the right decisions rather than just the opinions of others. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. So that concludes the question and answer portion of tonight's forum. Now we will get to the last portion of tonight's forum, which is the closing statements. So each candidate will have 2 minutes to make their final pitch to the voters of Lodi as to why they ought to pick for them, or why they ought to pick them to become members of the Lodi Board of Ed. All right. So last time we started with Ms. Ochoa. We're gonna go the opposite route this time. So we're gonna start with Mr. Ramos.
The reason why you should vote for all of us, besides myself, is that me and we're proven. We've done it in the past. We've saved money. We expanded classrooms and the curriculum. We did a good job last time. Unfortunately, we didn't get a chance to get back in on the last election. And what we want to do is we want to make sure there's no conflict of interest. There's no nepotism. There's no right now there's no transparency. We want transparency in our school system. We want to know what the budget is. We want to know what they're spending. And it's not fair to the taxpayers of Lodi. It's not fair to the children or the staff when you don't have a basic budget that everybody can see. That was the last year was the first year that the whole board voted on a budget that basically they never saw. So what I'm saying is, give us a chance. We'll go back in there. We'll clean it up, and we'll make it fair for people. That's why we're here.
Okay, thank you. Next candidate to give the closing statement will be Mr. Mastro Filippo. You have 2 minutes.
Yeah, thank you. Well, listen, we definitely have a lot of things that have moved backwards in our education. We proved, as Mr. Ramos said, that you can make a difference. You can change things. When we came there, and more so now than ever, any staff that spoke up were, being basically, for lack of better words, retaliated against, run off, moved out of the district. As many of you know, and I brought up numerous times, we lost 58 teachers this year through resignation. And I know people are going to say there's a teacher shortage, and I get it, there is, but 58 is a lot. And I believe we lost another 6 last. And they'll say it's the low pay, but it's not. I mean, some of these staff are bringing in on 9, 10, 12, 13 steps, and they're still leaving. It's from what I see is that, and speaking to people, is that they feel that, administration, board, whatever, is not fully backing what needs to be done here. And if they speak about it, they feel like their job is at jeopardy. And they also still feel there's no advancement possibility here unless you're with the good old boys club, and I don't mean the Lodi Boys Club, don't misconstrue. We went there and we made sure, and a lot of staff will tell you now, especially what's been going on there, that the things that have happened to some staff members would have never happened if I was there. It definitely wouldn't have happened if Mr. Ramos was there. So let us go there. We need 3 people to make any difference at all on that board. And let us convince those board members. All they're hearing is from administration. Let them hear from people who've been there and know what you can and you cannot do, since they're only telling you one side. So I hope the people support us, and we'll do our best when we get there. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Al. And finally, last but not least, Ms. Gemina Ochoa. You have 2 minutes.
Okay. I think we need a change in Lodi. And I see with all the meetings that I'm attending that the staff need the support. The student need more, like I say, less complaining and more acting. The reading, they are behind. Say, as a religion education teacher, I see that in the little ones, 7 years, 10 years old, that they are not capable to read. And I see and I speak and with friends of mine, with a lot of parents that they need a change. Not the teachers, like Al says, they need the support of the administrators and the Board of Education members, because sometimes they don't speak out because they are afraid. They are afraid for retaliation.
All right. So that concludes the 2022 Lodi Board of Education online form. For all the viewers and listeners who are tuning in, thank you for joining us today. We hope that this has been a platform, a good platform for you to get to know a little bit more about your candidates this year. And you know what? Voting is key, right? If you don't like what's happening in your community, in your hometown, the best way to make the change, aside from posting on Facebook and arguing with friends, is to actually go out there and vote. So for all of you who are watching right now, early voting is already underway right now in Bergen County. And election day is on November 8th. November 8th. So I'm not going to tell you who to vote for. You just have to, do your own research, and hopefully this forum tonight will, help out. So that's it for us today. Okay. So thank you for watching this 2022 Lodi Board of Ed forum. I want to thank the participants for coming on today. I thought we had a great discussion. A lot was discussed, and I think a lot of great questions from the audience. So thank you to all of those who participated and submitted questions. All right. So that's it for today, guys. Please feel free to share this forum. It will be on the Real Talk with Ronnie's Facebook page, and I'm sure the candidates will also share it. And once it's published, please feel free to share the link on Facebook as well as the link on YouTube. This is also streaming straight to my YouTube page, Real Talk with Ronnie. So feel free to grab the links from both of those sites. It's also streaming on LinkedIn also. So if any of you are watching this through LinkedIn, search for Ronald Joseph Lin. So on all three of those sites, feel free to share, because sharing is caring. Okay. So have a great day. Have a great night. And we will be with you very, very soon. Okay. So thank you to all our participants. My name is Ronald Joseph Lin. You're now watching Real Talk with Ronnie, a special edition of the 2022 Lodi Board of Education online forum. All right. So thank you. God bless. And please remember to vote. I don't care how you vote. You want to vote early, you want to vote by mail, you want to vote in person, just vote. It's your constitutional right. So act on it. All right. Thank you and good night.